Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Villains Beyond, Episode 8, Absorbing Man. We're going to take a look at Absorbing Man's stats on his different stages. We're going to take a look at his unique mechanics and how his cards are going to interact with our hero. We'll take a look at some of the little rules that might be missed and some of the little things that are a little bit more complex. And then finally, we're going to take a look at some of the modular sets that we can include to enhance the overall thematics, difficulty, or just simple enjoyment of the scenario. All this and more on this episode of Villains Beyond Absorbing Man. All right, Absorbing Man has the Brute trait on all three stages. He also has a text that says Absorbing Man gains the trait of each environment in play, and he has that on all three stages. On his stage 1, he has a scheme of 1, an attack of 2, and he's got 14 hit points per player. On stage 2, he's got 2 scheme, 2 attack, 15 hit points per player, and a when revealed, if super absorbing power is in play, you deal 1 encounter card to each player. Otherwise, you search the encounter deck and discard pile for the super absorbing power and reveal it. You shuffle the encounter deck if it was searched this way. And then finally, on stage 3, he has 16 hit points per player. He has 2 scheme, 3 attack, and a forced response after Absorbing Man activates against you. If he has the ice or stone trait, you place 1 threat on the main scheme, and if he has the metal or wood trait, you take 1 indirect damage. So as you can see, he works a lot with the traits that are going to be surrounding him because he absorbs stuff, makes sense. All right, so now let's go take a look at his main scheme. His main scheme is called None Shall Pass. There is a setup ability saying to discard cards from the encounter deck until an environment is discarded, and then you put that card into play and shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck, and then you flip. It is still called None Shall Pass. It starts at 2 per player. It goes up by 1 per player. It has a cap of 12 per player. It has a forced response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, you place 1 delay counter here. And a force interrupt. When an environment enters play, you discard each other environment into play. And if this stage is completed, the players lose the game. So only 1 stage, but it can go up to 12, so it is pretty high. Now, let's take a look at those environments. All right, he has 4 environment cards, and they all have something in common. They all have the surge keyword, and they all have a boost icon that says that put that card into play. Now, every time there is an undefended attack, there is going to be a force response. And let's take a look at the first one. The Rocky Outcrop. It is the environment card. It has the stone trait. Again, like I said, it will surge if it comes out as a when revealed. The force response, if you don't block, if you don't defend his attack, you will heal for a damage, heal for 2 damage if there are 5 or more delay counters. And again, the boost icon, you put it into play. The next one is the dense forest that gives him the wood trait. Again, will surge. After Absorbing Man makes an undefended attack, you'll take 1 indirect damage. If there's 5 delay counters, you'll take 2 indirect damage. And then again, the boost icon that puts it into play. Then we have the Snowy Hillside that gives him the ice trait. Surge again, absorbing after its undefended attack. You'll place 1 threat on the main scheme, 2 threat instead if there are 5 or more delay counters. And again, put it into play. And then the final one, and I think the most brutal one, is the Abandoned Facility. Gives him the metal trait. Again, will surge. And then after Absorbed Man makes an undefended attack, you will discard 1 resource icon from your hand, 2 resource icons if there are 5 or more delay counters. And again, these cards will come into play as a boost icon. So these are very, very cool. It really plays into his old mechanic that, he's going to absorb whatever is around him. So that is one of my favorite parts about this scenario, is like how he can change and evolve with the different environment players. All right, now let's take a look at some of his signature stuff. All right, so he only has 1 attachment. It's a breather from Crossbones, and his attachment is called the Ball and Chain. It is a weapon, and there is a hero gives him +1 scheme, +1 attack. There's a hero action to spend a physical resource to shuffle this card into the encounter deck, and then is a boost effect, it reveals that card. So it attaches directly to Absorbing Man. Then he has a couple of side schemes. The first one is my favorite one. It is the Super Absorbing Power, and this one comes in at 3 per player. There's a star icon, and it also reveals that card if it comes out as a boost. And it says, Absorbing Man gains the Ice, Metal, Stone, and Wood trait. So that means he's going to have every power on him. So that is pretty crazy, especially when you get him to stage 3. Then there is the Avalanche that comes in at 2 per player. It has a acceleration icon, and when revealed, each player must choose to either spend a lightning resource or take 2 indirect damage. 3 indirect damage instead if there are 5 or more delay counters on the main scheme. So again, really seeing like you don't want to stall with this guy. You really want to try to take him down as quickly as possible, because the longer the game runs, the more powerful his cards will be. Then he's got a whole bunch of treachery. Again, his whole thing is stalling you in the campaign, but as a single scenario, there's still more stuff. So he has the stall tactic. So when revealed, you'll place 1 threat on the main scheme for every 2 delay counters on the main scheme. And if no threat was placed this way, this card will gain Surge. And as a boost icon, if there are 5 or more delay counters on the main scheme, you'll take 1 indirect damage. So that is probably his easiest treachery card. Then we're going to go with his traits. This one is pretty cool. This is the Piercing Thorns. When revealed, you will discard a card at random from your hand, and if Absorbing has the Wood trait, you will discard 1 card you control. As a boost icon, if Absorbing Man has the Stone or Wood trait, you will get stunned. Then we have the Steel Kick, and he's got 2 copies of that one too. And then this has a when revealed in Alter Ego, you'll place 2 threat on the main scheme, 3 threat instead if he has the Metal trait. And when you are in hero form, when revealed hero, you'll take 3 indirect damage, 4 indirect damage instead if he has the Metal trait. So that can hurt a lot. Then we have the Swinging Stone, and again 2 more treacheries. When revealed an Alter Ego, Absorbing Man will scheme, and if he has the Stone trait, he gets +1 to that scheme for this activation. And in hero form, he is going to attack you. Again, if he has the Stone trait, he gets +1 attack. Then we have the Ice Grip, which says when revealed, you are stunned, and if Absorbing Man has the Ice trait, you'll take 2 indirect damage. And as a boost icon, if Absorbing Man has the Ice or Metal trait, you give him a tough status card. So that's really cool that all his treacheries most of them come out as boost. Well, they'll do an effect as a boost icon, and then they all work with whatever power he has. But this is probably my best and favorite of his treacheries, and he's got 3 copies of this. This is Omnimorph Duplication. So when revealed, if Absorbing Man has the Ice trait, you exhaust your identity. If he has the Metal trait, you give Absorbing Man a tough status card and a heal 1 damage. If he has the Stone trait, you'll give Absorbing Man a face down boost card. And if he has the Wood trait, you'll discard 1 card at random from your hand. Now for the reason why you're here, to see how we can modify this scenario just to make it a little bit more interesting and maybe not as easy. Well, the first suggestion doesn't actually revolve changing anything to the scenario. It is just starting the game with Super Absorbing Power. And instead of putting 3 threat per player, you just leave it in the game the entire time. This will really increase the power level of his cards. So every card that, especially all of his treacheries, will always have the maximum effect. And then obviously going with the Omnimorph Duplication is going to be the big card that is often going to hose you and make this scenario a lot more interesting and more challenging as well. And that's it without changing anything. All right, the second way that I would suggest to challenge yourself or just make the game a little bit more interesting is to give the standard 2 and maybe even the expert 2 cards go for a run. Kind of like with the Norman Osborn set, which is a little bit on the easy side. Absorbing Man has that kind of same quality, which is a little on the easy side. So if you don't feel like keeping the Super Absorbing Power in, maybe adding standard 2 cards is another great way. So obviously we've seen that the standard 2 would come with the formidable foe, and if you want to add the expert 2, it actually adds an acceleration, which is great. And then we obviously have the upgrades to the standard cards. So the overwhelming mob mentality, dark dealings, and total annihilations. And then if you're deciding to put in the expert 2 cards, well, you have the upgraded under fire. What's the other one? Upgraded master plan, the upgraded exhaustion, and then this new bonus card, seek and destroy, which is your nemesis that comes into play. So this is just an easy suggestion to really increase the difficulty of the challenge. But now let's go and take a look at some thematic builds for this set. All right, so to go into the thematics of being stalled and just delaying you as much as possible, I think the first modular set that I would recommend is the Scorpion modular set, A Mess of Things, coming from the Green Goblin scenario pack. This Scorpion is a 3/3 with 7 quick strike. It's not a minion that you can leave on the board because every time he attacks you, he quick strikes, and it is brutal, and he stuns you. So this is definitely a very powerful minion that needs to get away. So this is going to stall you, and 7 damage. Sometimes you're like, oh shoot, if he comes out on your first turn, you'll have to deal with him, which is going to kind of stall you with the delays. And then he's got 2 tail sweeps that he will attack you if he's in play, or you will be stunned. So yeah, so if no attacks are made like that, you just get stunned, and as a boost card, you get stunned. So obviously they want to stun you. He also has the gang up, which just makes the villain activate another time, and a nice little side scheme that, you know, has a boost effect the more characters that are stunned. So again, this is not a super difficult modular set. It is gonna maybe throw you back depending if you get some of those cards, but I would say difficulty wise probably a 5 or a 6 in that. Now, let's keep going. The next modular set that I would recommend, again, in that sole optic of stalling you, it is the Temporal modular set from Kang. It has 3 Ancient Warriors that when they are revealed as boost cards, or when they get discarded as boost cards, they will stun you, so again, causing lots of delays in traffic. If they are just minions that come out, well, it's not as powerful. But you also have the Chitauri soldiers and the T-Rex, and obviously you have that time portal that just keeps reshuffling all the time. So it's a nice little side scheme that's pretty cheese. So difficulty wise, same thing. I would say it's probably a 5 or a 6. Now, the next one I would recommend is what better ways to stall you if you can have guard minions, and guard minions that can also give tough to the villain. So unless you have piercing and you're playing Wolverine, where you can just shred that piercing, this is going to slow down most heroes. Having a guard in front of you, and when they are defeated, those guards will give the villain a tough status card. So not only are you wasting most likely 2 attacks, 1 to defeat him, 1 to remove the tough. So that can really add on to the Absorbing Man really stalling your time, your party. Then we have the Outriders that just make you discard cards at random. So again, putting stuff away, taking cards away from your hero is another great way to stall you. And then the best part about this is the Landing Crafts. Since Absorbing Man has no minions in the deck, you would discard until you get 1 of these guys, and there's only 4 in the deck. So not only is he accelerating his game plan, and he's also stalling you a lot more. So there you go. So that is for the thematics of the thing. Now let's go take a look at some of the modular sets to increase difficulty. So the first one I would recommend to increase the difficulty would be, again, from the Kang scenario pack, would be the Anachronauts. Now, not only do the Anachronauts are very tough minions, but they also have these crazy boost effects that are really punishing. So Terminatrix, she's got 5 health, she's a 2/2 and quick strike, and her attacks gain piercing, and then if she comes out as a boost, it gives the villain 2 extra boost cards. Then you got Death Hunt 9000, who's toughness and villainous, but he's not a guard, so that's kind of sad. But he gives the enemy a tough status card and another boost card when you get him as a boost. Then we have Sir Rashton, who is another guard. He was a guard with retaliate, and if you see him as a boost, he'll give 1 damage. He'll deal you 1 damage and give the villain another boost card. Then we have Apocryphus. You'll discard an ally or support you control when he's revealed, or as a boost card, you exhaust a character you control, and then you give the enemy another boost card. And then finally, we have Wild Run, who is, when revealed, discards a random card from your hand, and as a boost icon, does the same thing, but he also gives the villain an extra boost card. Then we have Kang's Chosen, that goes and gets one of these clowns. And then finally, the Anachronauts. If you don't defeat it, it's extra encounter cards. But if you do defeat it, you shuffle all of the temporal cards, which is all of these minions, back into the villain's main deck. So difficulty-wise, I would start saying that is a good 7, 7.5, if not 8. Very, very challenging, those Anachronauts, and they just keep coming back. All right, the second one to really add to the difficulty, it would be the Legions of Hydra. So this has 3 Hydra guards that have 4 health and guard, and then when they are defeated, they deal you an extra encounter card. So that is annoying because it can be a guard that leads into another guard. And again, leaning into the strategy of stalling you, these guys are punishing. You have the 2 Legions of Hydra. So if those side schemes come out, you have to find Madame Hydra, and also you place 1 threat for each Hydra minion. A good thing that Absorbing Man is not a Hydra, so if you don't have any soldiers in front of you, it shouldn't be too bad. And then the Madame Hydra that comes in with that side scheme has a 2/2, and then when she activates, you place 2 threat on that side scheme, which gives you more encounter cards, and then more encounter cards go into dealing with more crap. So there you go. So Absorbing Man with the Legions of Hydra, definitely a good 8, 8.5 on the difficulty scale. And then finally, I think one of the harder ones is the Enchantress from the Mad Titan Shadow. So the Enchantress, if she comes out, when she gets revealed, you search the encounter deck and discard pile for a card named Seduced, and you attach it to your identity. Now, what does Seduce do? It says, attach your identity. You cannot attack basic attacks or attack events. So this is really going to hose you. You'll have to go to Alter Ego. You have to spend specific resource types to get rid of it, and you might not just, if you're not built properly, you might just be able to never attack again if you never have that lightning or mental resource. And then there's the Beguiled that go, that most likely are going to surge. But if you have an ally in front of you, that ally will now become a minion. So again, this one is very situational because unless you see a Seduce pop up, it doesn't do anything. So this one, it ranges difficulty-wise. If you get the Enchantress modular sets as your encounter cards, difficulty is going to be like around an 8.59. But if you just get them as boost cards, it's probably just a 5 because there's not a lot of boost icons on them. So they're really, if you reveal them as encounter cards, that's where that one comes into play and really hoses you down. Then finally, for the lulls, things that we can add to the modular set for the lulls. One of my favorite things I want to do is brute on brute action. So adding the Mr. Hyde modular set from the Hood has that self-experimentation, which goes and gets Mr. Hyde, which is a brute. And not only that, it also protects Absorbing Man. So it's 5 per player. And then every damage he would take, it goes on this and removes threat on this instead. So there you go. So that's a good way. If you're playing solo, it's only 5 damage. But, you know, if you're playing in a 4-player game, that's 20 damage that you are not dealing to the Absorbing Man. So it really goes into the stall mechanic as well. Then obviously you have Mr. Hyde, who's a 1/3. You have Calvin Zabo. And then you have the Hyde formula, which gives them an activation. So there you go. So not... on the difficulty scale, there's only 4 cards, so it's not, you know, the odds of you seeing those are very low. But I would say difficulty-wise, I would give this one probably a 5. depending what's coming out. The next one I would really like to see. Again, I told you all about the brute on brute, and there's no bigger brutes than the Wrecking Crew, again from the Hood Scenario Pack. So adding these bad boys and adding this one with the you kind of mix and match with Mr. Hyde, and then the self-incrimination, so you can have some fun with that. But those bad boys are all villainous. They all have these abilities. They're all pretty strong minions, and most of them have 2 or 3 boost icons. Yeah, there's 2 with 3 boost icons and 2 with 2 boost icons. So they're pretty powerful. Obviously, the crew is there to wreck you, pun intended. And then Magic Muscles gives each brute enemy a tough status card, so that's good because he is a brute. And then Combined Effort, you know, each brute minion in play is going to activate with you. And if no activation, they gain Surge. And then the top talent will also give Absorbing Man, because it says each brute minion gains Retaliate. So he's not a minion, but it just it could have been cool if it says each brute enemy in play gains Retaliate. This would have been a better wording. So, but again, it kind of feeds off the lulls of, you know, brute on brute action. Difficulty wise, it's a little bit more challenging, so I would say this one's probably a 6.5, just because of the health of the minions. And then finally, the last one, I'm like imagining Absorbing Man touching Venom. So yes, the symbiotic strength. Not only does it have a couple of guards and patrol minions, but it also has ways to stun you and cancel 2 of your attacks. It has ways to, you know, flip you back to hero form or attack you with extra boost cards. He gets, you give him the villain extra boost cards and Surge, and it gets +2 in Overkill. So that can be really brutal. Then you have the extra boost icons here with the improvised weapons, which I think falls really good into the lulls team because, oh, I'm touching goop. I'm goop. And then obviously the violent tendencies, if you're just doing like 2 damage here and there from little attacks, violent tendency would just add a ton of boost cards that can wreck your day. And that's it for the recommended modular sets. Now, let's take a look at some of the best cards you can include while facing this guy. All right, here are some of the best cards that you can include in your deck to fight off Mr. Absorbing Man. Cards like Skill Strike that cost a little to do a lot of damage are definitely what you want to be looking for in aggression, but you might want to shy away from cards like Toe to Toe because the villain will activate, and if you're not defending, you can have some negative effects. So, but cards like Skill Strike that just kind of boost your increase your attack is exactly what you want to find here. In protection, cards like Powerful Punch are probably optimal because not only are you doing damage, but it also counts as a defense, so it counts against the villain. It prevents when the villain attacks you to trigger his environment card. So again, cards like Powerful Punch in protection, so good, so good. Even Injustice, those schemes, if you're playing Injustice, anything that can deal damage, the threat is never going to really be an issue with this guy. So cards that say if you remove the last threat, or you know, make the villain scheme and deal some damage, that's really where you want to be with this scenario. So even Injustice, look for the damage cards. Same for leadership. If you're going to be playing an ally strategy, why not have your allies just go in hard with cards like Last Stand that just 0 for 3 damage is huge on an ally. So especially if you can get an ally in cheap and then using Last Stand on it, I think is a good idea. And then in basics, well, cards like Nick Fury, but not necessarily drawing 3 cards. Just if you take a look at Nick Fury, you do 4 damage, 6 damage, and then he blocks for you. So that is a great combination for a one effect card. So there you go. So those are the top recommendations. All right, well, this about wraps it up for the Absorbing Man. So this villain, I hope you will revisit and you know, take another look-see at this interesting villain that has a very cool, unique mechanic Let's see if he can stall you with these suggestions to modify his style of play. Aside from that, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and leave some comments down below. Tell me if you're still enjoying these videos, and I'll keep making them. All right, and on that note, we'll see you next week for the next installment with Taskmaster. But until then, just remember to have some fun and play the game. Ciao, ciao, guys.